The alien's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sound Maya's translator couldn't quite process. Her scanner indicated the Vesperi was losing fluid rapidly from the gash in her side. "I need to apply pressure here," Maya said, reaching slowly toward the wound. "This will hurt, but it will stop the bleeding." The Vesperi warrior hissed, her secondary limbs extending to full defensive posture. Maya paused but didn't retreat. Around them, the wreckage of the scout ship smoldered, sending acrid smoke into Delta 9's artificially generated atmosphere. The outpost's perimeter alarms continued to wail in the distance. "Your species has encountered mine before," the Vesperi said, her voice now coming through the translator as a metallic contralto. "You know what we do to worlds that resist us. You know what these are for." She flexed her natural weapons, serrated, chitinous blades that extended from her forearms. Maya nodded. "Yes, we've studied your species' expansion through the Cygnus arm. Those are for hunting and combat. Right now, they're getting in the way of medical treatment." The Vesperi's multifaceted eyes shifted through several color patterns. Surprise, Maya guessed, though xenobiology was still largely guesswork when it came to emotional states. "Commander Chen, please respond." Maya's comm unit crackled with Chief Security Officer Reyes' voice. "Hostile contact confirmed. Extraction team is 2 minutes out. Maintain distance." Maya kept her eyes on the wounded alien as she responded. "Negative on extraction. I've got an injured Vesperi, preparing for medical transport." "That's a direct violation of first contact hostility protocols," Reyes barked. "Note my objection in the log." Maya replied calmly. "I'm invoking medical override. Have the xenobiology containment unit prepped and ready." She switched off the comm before Reyes could continue arguing. The Vesperi watched this exchange with her head tilted in what Maya interpreted as confusion. "You're countermanding your superior's orders to assist me." "He's not my superior in medical matters," Maya explained, slowly extending her scanner again. "And you'll die without treatment. That gash has severed what appears to be a major circulatory vessel. May I?" The alien's wings folded slightly, not a surrender, but a fractional relaxation of her threat display. "You would preserve an enemy combatant." "We don't know that we're enemies yet," Maya said, finally placing the compression bandage against the oozing wound. The Vesperi flinched but didn't strike. "That's politics. I'm a doctor." As Maya worked, the alien's breathing stabilized somewhat, though the yellowish fluid continued to seep around the edges of the bandage. In the distance, the whine of approaching transport vehicles grew louder. "Your people are coming with weapons," the Vesperi observed, her sensory antennae twitching toward the sound. "Yes," Maya acknowledged. "They're afraid of you." "As they should be," the alien replied, but there was a new note in her voice, something like curiosity. "Yet you are not." Maya secured the final seal on the bandage and looked directly into those shifting, iridescent eyes. "I'm afraid of lots of things. Losing patience, making the wrong call, what your fleet might do when they come looking for you. But right now, fear isn't helpful. It won't stop your bleeding or get you proper treatment." The Vesperi was silent for several seconds, her exoskeleton plates extending and contracting in what might have been deep thought. Finally, she said, "I am Scout Commander Kirvesh of the Vesperi Dominion." "Dr. Maya Chen, xenobiologist, Frontier Outpost Delta 9, Maya replied, offering the formal introduction. "Can you walk with assistance, Commander Kirvesh? My medical facility is better equipped than my field kit." As the transport vehicles crested the ridge, Kirvesh allowed herself to be helped to her feet, creating a tableau that would soon become historic in interspecies relations. A human physically supporting a creature engineered by evolution to inspire terror, neither predator nor prey, but something new entirely. The medical bay's sterile white surfaces reflected the blue-tinged light as Maya carefully adjusted the nutrient solution flowing into Kirvesh's exoskeletal ports. 3 days had passed since the crash landing, and the Vesperi's condition had stabilized, though her agitation had not. "That restraint is unnecessary," Kirvesh said, indicating the single flexible band across her midsection. "If I wished to harm you, this would not prevent it." Maya nodded as she checked the warrior's vitals on her tablet. "It's not to protect us from you. It's to protect you from reopening your wound if you move too suddenly. The internal sutures are still setting." Across the room, Security Chief Reyes shifted his weight, his hand never straying far from his sidearm. His expression remained professionally neutral, but the tension in his shoulders betrayed his discomfort. "Your guard fears me appropriately," Kirvesh observed, her sensory antenna flicking toward Reyes. Yet he does not flee or attack. Curious restraint. "Chief Reyes is doing his job," Maya replied, "just as I'm doing mine." Kirvesh's exoskeleton plates flared suddenly, creating the distinctive rasping sound that Vesperi used to signal dominance challenges. Maya didn't flinch, simply reaching over to adjust a scanner that was being disrupted by the motion. "In Vesperi society," Kirvesh said, her voice dropping to the subsonic register that typically preceded an attack, "a healer would demonstrate proper deference through visible trembling when treating a warrior of my rank." Maya's hands remained steady as she applied a regenerative compound to the healing gash. "That would make for inaccurate medical procedures, I imagine." A sound emerged from Kirvesh that the translator didn't process, something between a hiss and a click that might have been frustration or amusement. "Your species' response makes no evolutionary sense. Fear keeps creatures alive." "Fear is a tool," Maya agreed, surprising the alien. "But tools are meant to be used at appropriate times, not to control us." The conversation paused as Dr. Patel entered with additional supplies. The junior doctor's eyes widened slightly at the fully conscious Vesperi, but she delivered the materials to Maya with professional composure. Kirvesh watched this interaction closely. "You train your subordinates not to show fear as well." "We don't train that specifically," Maya explained. "But we practice maintaining function under stress. Dr. Patel has worked in emergency situations before." The young doctor nodded. 3 years in orbital trauma centers during the Io mining disaster. Before Kirvesh could respond, an oxygen line near the primary ventilation system ruptured, the pressure sending a metal coupling flying across the room. It struck a cabinet of supplies, causing a small explosion of chemical compounds. Maya moved instantly, throwing herself across the Vesperi's body to shield her from the debris. Reyes drew his weapon, aiming at the source of the disturbance before recognizing it as a mechanical failure. When the emergency containment system activated, sealing the small fire behind a force field, Maya straightened up and began checking Kirvesh for any negative impacts from the incident. The Vesperi lay perfectly still, her multifaceted eyes fixed on Maya's face. "You positioned yourself to absorb potential damage, directed at me." "Instinct," Maya said simply. "You're my patient." "This is not rational behavior," Kirvesh stated. "I represent a potential threat to your outpost." Maya continued her examination. "Rational or not, it's what we do. Protecting others is as deeply ingrained in us as fear responses are in you." For the first time since her arrival, Kirvesh fell completely silent. The rhythmic expansion and contraction of her breathing apparatus was the only movement visible as she studied the humans around her with new intensity, as though seeing an entirely different species than she had moments before. The hydroponic garden hummed with the gentle sounds of water circulation and environmental controls. Suspended growth pods created vertical columns of vibrant green throughout the circular chamber, punctuated by the occasional burst of colourful flowering medicinal plants. Kirvesh's taloned hands moved with surprising delicacy as she separated the ripe seed pods from the stem of a pain-relieving herb. A week into her stay at Delta 9, she had been cleared for limited movement around the station, though a monitoring device remained attached to her exoskeleton. "Your people evolved as prey," she said, continuing their earlier conversation. "Yet you explore space, facing the unknown without proper caution. This contradicts survival instinct." Maya reached up to adjust one of the nutrient dispensers before responding. "Our caution takes different forms. We prepare, we plan, we develop technologies, but we don't let fear of the unknown stop us from moving forward. The Vesperi expand our territory because we must," Kirvesh explained. "Dominance ensures survival. Your species expands out of curiosity." "Partly," Maya admitted, "but also because staying in one place has its own dangers. Earth faced extinction-level events that might have been prevented if we'd established colonies elsewhere sooner." A notification chime interrupted them, and Maya's tablet displayed an incoming transmission marked with high-priority indicators. She opened the message, her expression growing serious as she read. "Your people have noticed your absence," she said, showing Kirvesh the screen with its tactical display of approaching Vesperi vessels. "They're demanding your immediate return and threatening consequences if we fail to comply." Around them, the station's alert status changed, subtle shifts in lighting and announcement tones signaling preparation protocols without causing panic. Personnel moved with purpose rather than fear, each attending to predetermined responsibilities. Kirvesh observed this measured response with evident interest. In a Vesperi station, subordinates would be displaying appropriate terror at this development, offering themselves as sacrifices to appease commander anger. "That's not how we work," Maya said, sending several rapid instructions through her tablet. "Fear-based responses lead to poor decision-making. We've learned to channel the adrenaline into focused action instead." The station's senior staff convened rapidly in the adjacent conference room, tactical displays showing the approaching Vesperi fleet. Commander Rodriguez outlined defensive options, while Communications Officer Park detailed potential diplomatic responses. "I have another suggestion," Maya said when they finished. "We invite the Vesperi commander aboard, without weapons or guards, for direct negotiation." The room fell silent for a moment before erupting in overlapping objections. "That's the protocol for first contact with unknown species," Chief Reyes argued. "Not for a militaristic empire with known hostility." Maya turned to Kirvesh, who had been permitted to observe from the room's perimeter. "Would your commander accept such an invitation?" The Vesperi's mandibles clicked rapidly in what Maya had come to recognize as their equivalent of surprise. Such fearlessness would be interpreted as either supreme confidence or foolish weakness. It would be seen as a dominance challenge. "Sometimes the best way to disarm someone is to actually disarm," Maya replied. "Your people respect strength. We're showing strength, just not in the way they expect." Kirvesh tilted her head, compound eyes shifting through patterns of blue and green. "This may work, but not for the reasons you believe. My commander will come expecting a trap or demonstration of superior weaponry. When neither materializes, the confusion may create opportunity." Commander Rodriguez studied the tactical displays, then looked at the waiting staff. Prepare for diplomatic contact. Maya, draft the invitation with Kirvesh's input for proper protocol. But make no mistake. His eyes moved across every person in the room. This is unprecedented. Be ready for anything. As the meeting dispersed, Kirvesh approached Maya privately. You realize that by appearing unafraid, you're using our own cultural expectations against us. Maya smiled slightly. I'm not appearing unafraid. I'm simply prioritizing solution finding over fear response. There's a difference. Commander Zextroll's shadow stretched across the conference table as he circled the human delegation. Despite the agreement for an unarmed meeting, his elite guards stood at the entrances, their natural weapons unsheathed. The humans had chosen not to comment on this breach of protocol. Your species claims this sector as a scientific preserve, Zextroll said, his translator rendering his clicks and subsonic rumbles into clipped, precise phrases. The Vesperi Dominion recognizes no such designation. These stars will join our territory. Commander Rodriguez maintained a neutral expression. We're open to discussing shared access to the research data. Several star systems here contain unique phenomena worth studying together. Zextroll paused his pacing, his exoskeleton flaring in what Kirvesh had explained was a display of aggressive dismissal. The effect was impressive. Nearly 9 feet of armored, weaponized alien looming over the seated humans, yet none showed the expected cowering response. You misunderstand our position, Zextroll said. We do not share, we claim. Maya exchanged glances with Rodriguez before speaking. Perhaps we could discuss potential benefits of scientific collaboration while your ships receive necessary repairs. Our engineers have prepared options for. You offer assistance to a superior force. Zextroll interrupted, his secondary limbs extending in clear threat posture. This implies you believe we cannot efficiently repair our own vessels. The tension in the room thickened. Kirvesh, seated slightly apart from both delegations, watched with visible fascination. She had warned Maya that her commander viewed even basic hospitality as potential manipulation or insult. Not at all, Maya responded calmly. We offer because cooperation benefits both parties. Your scout ship sustained unusual damage from the nebula's radiation. We've gathered data that might prevent similar incidents. Before Zextroll could respond, a junior technician entered with refreshments. The human moved too quickly, his sleeve catching on a container of nutrient drink. The liquid splashed across the floor near the commander's feet. The Vesperi guards hissed, moving forward with weapons raised. Zextroll himself went completely still, the most dangerous sign in Vesperi body language. My sincere apologies, Commander, the technician said, immediately dropping to clean the spill. Clumsy of me. Commander Rodriguez helped the young man, passing him additional cleaning cloths. No harm done. Please bring a fresh tray when you can. The Vesperi delegation stared in disbelief. In their culture, such an offense against a high commander would result in immediate execution, or at minimum, severe punishment. The casual response from the humans disrupted every expectation. Zextroll slammed his natural weapons into the table, creating deep gouges in the metal. What is wrong with your species? He demanded, genuine confusion breaking through his diplomatic facade. Do you not understand your position? We have 3 warships in orbit. You show no proper deference, no appropriate fear. Maya met his gaze directly. Another violation of Vesperi protocol, where subordinates averted their eyes from superiors. Commander, we understand your strength perfectly. We simply don't organize our responses around fear. We find cooperation more efficient than intimidation. She activated a holographic display showing historical records of Earth's former enemies becoming allies, technological advances born from collaboration, and successful multi-species scientific projects. "Your history means nothing to us," Zextrol said, but his attention remained fixed on the display, his antennae twitching with reluctant interest. "Perhaps not," Maya acknowledged. "But it suggests possibilities neither of us has considered. Your strength is undeniable, Commander. We simply question whether strength must always be used to dominate rather than to build." The silence that followed stretched uncomfortable seconds into a full minute. Finally, Zextrol spoke, his voice modulated to a frequency that the translator struggled to capture accurately. "You are not what we expected, humans." Kirvesh moved through Delta 9's research section, her assigned monitoring device blinking steadily at her side. 2 weeks had passed since Commander Zextrol's departure, and her integration into station life progressed with surprising ease. The humans had accepted her presence with that same disorienting lack of appropriate fear that continued to fascinate her. In the xenobiology lab, Dr. Patel looked up from her microscope as Kirvesh entered. Perfect timing. "The cellular samples from your hemolymph show remarkable adaptive properties. Would you mind looking at this?" Kirvesh leaned forward, examining the magnified display of her own cellular structure. "You allow me to see your research. This would be restricted knowledge in Vesperi facilities." "Science works better with collaboration," Dr. Patel said with a shrug. "Besides, it's your biology. You might notice something we've missed." Later that evening, alone in her quarters, Kirvesh recorded her daily report to the Vesperi High Command. Day 15 of observation. "I have found no evidence of neural dampening technology or biological modifications that would explain human fear suppression. Their ability to function without displaying appropriate terror appears to be cultural rather than technological." She paused, considering her next words carefully. "They continue to grant me access to their facilities, despite knowing I report to my superiors. This behavior contradicts all strategic logic." The High Command's response arrived hours later, encrypted and direct. "Your reports are inadequate. The humans must possess defensive technology they are concealing. Detailed schematics of their neural modification systems are required. Reconnaissance teams are being dispatched to Earth's defense networks to acquire this technology directly." Kirvesh's antennae flattened against her head, a gesture of concern no human would recognize. The Vesperi were planning an infiltration based on a fundamental misunderstanding of human psychology. The following day, she observed a training simulation where station personnel practiced emergency responses. The humans deliberately exposed themselves to controlled fear scenarios, radiation leaks, hull breaches, hostile encounters, and methodically worked through their protocols. "You trained to ignore fear," she commented to Maya afterward. "Not ignore it," Maya corrected, wiping sweat from her forehead. "Channel it. Fear sharpens focus when you don't let it control you." That evening, as Kirvesh walked through the station's residential section, she encountered something entirely unexpected: children. A small group played in a communal area, supervised by off-duty personnel. One small human, no more than 6 years old, approached her without hesitation. "Are you the alien everyone's talking about? Your skin looks like rainbow metal." Before her handler could intervene, Kirvesh lowered herself to the child's level, a posture no Vesperi warrior would ever adopt voluntarily. "Yes, I am Kirvesh." The child's face showed curiosity rather than terror. "Can I touch your arm? Does it feel like a beetle?" The handler started forward. "Jamie, That's not appropriate, though. It is acceptable. Kirvesh interrupted, extending one limb with its natural weapons carefully retracted. The child's small fingers traced the contours of her exoskeleton with delighted fascination. "It's smooth, like my dad's surfboard," the child exclaimed. Later that night, Kirvesh sat motionless in her quarters, reviewing the infiltration plans that would target Earth's defensive systems. The Vesperi would be seeking technology that didn't exist, endangering a mission and potentially provoking a conflict based on a complete misunderstanding of human nature. For the first time in her life, Kirvesh questioned her duty to the Dominion. The humans' inexplicable behavior, their willingness to show kindness without fear, their trust extended despite logical risk, had created something unprecedented: doubt. Dawn found her standing outside Maya's quarters, her exoskeleton plates pulled tight against her body in the Vesperi expression of extreme distress. When the door opened, she spoke without preamble. "Your people are in danger," she said, "because mine cannot understand yours." The station's strategic response team gathered around holographic displays showing the Vesperi fleet movements. The room hummed with focused activity as analysts processed Kirvesh's intelligence about the planned infiltration. "They're seeking technology that doesn't exist," Maya explained, indicating the data Kirvesh had provided. "Their entire operation is based on the assumption that we must have some neural dampening system that prevents fear responses." Commander Rodriguez studied the tactical projections. "So they can't comprehend that we simply process fear differently. It contradicts their entire evolutionary and cultural framework," Kirvesh said from her position at the edge of the group. She had expected to be confined after her revelation, but instead found herself invited into the planning session. "The High Command believes your lack of visible terror must be technological. The concept that it could be purely psychological is unacceptable to them." Maya enlarged a section of the tactical display. "They're targeting Earth's defense networks, looking for technology that doesn't exist. When they don't find it, they'll assume it's more deeply hidden and escalate their search," Security Chief Reyes finished grimly, "potentially causing significant damage in the process." The room fell silent as the implications settled. Standard protocols for this situation called for immediate defensive preparation and potential preemptive strikes against the approaching Vesperi vessels. "I have a different suggestion," Maya said, breaking the silence. "What if we invite them in?" The room erupted in overlapping objections until Commander Rodriguez raised his hand for quiet. "Explain." "They're planning a covert operation to steal something we don't have," Maya said, turning to Kirvesh. "What if we instead send an open invitation for a large-scale cultural exchange program? We offer to host Vesperi scientists, share our research, and establish joint projects." Kirvesh's mandibles clicked rapidly. "You would invite your potential invaders as guests. It neutralizes their covert operation by making it unnecessary," Maya explained. "They want to understand how humans function without fear-based responses. We offer to show them directly." The station's communication officer frowned. "They'll never believe we're simply being transparent." "Exactly," Maya agreed. "They'll assume it's a trap or a demonstration of superior confidence. But either way, it disrupts their current strategy and buys us time." As the team refined the proposal, Kirvesh observed the humans with new intensity. There was no panic, no blame directed at her for her species' plans, not even anger at the potential threat, only focused problem-solving. When a junior officer suggested using her as leverage against the Vesperi, the idea was immediately dismissed as unethical. "We don't sacrifice individuals for tactical advantage," Commander Rodriguez stated firmly. not even former adversaries. Later, as Maya and Kirvesh composed the formal invitation using proper Vesperi diplomatic language, the alien turned to her human companion. In Vesperi culture, revealing tactical information about your own people would be punishable by death, she said quietly. Yet you've included me in your planning sessions, trusted me with your counter-strategy. Maya continued working on the translation. You chose to warn us. That matters. The High Command will interpret this invitation as either a trap or proof that you've detected their plans and are displaying dominance, Kirvesh warned. They'll likely accelerate their timeline rather than lose face. We're prepared for that possibility, Maya acknowledged as she finalized the message. She looked up as the station's warning systems began to activate, signaling the detection of approaching vessels. And here they come. Around them, the station shifted smoothly into emergency protocols. Personnel moved to assigned positions with practiced efficiency rather than panic, security systems activated, and defensive measures deployed, all without the terror that would be expected in a Vesperi facility facing potential attack. As they watched the coordinated response unfold, Maya turned to Kirvesh. Will you stand with us, not because you must, but because you choose to? The question hung between them, alien and human, predator and former prey, representatives of fundamentally different evolutionary paths. Kirvesh's compound eyes shifted through patterns of color as she considered her response. I have never been given a choice before, she said finally. Yes, I will stand with you. Alarms echoed through Delta 9's corridors as the station's external sensors tracked multiple Vesperi boarding craft approaching the outer docking rings. The infiltration team had bypassed standard protocols, forcing entry through maintenance airlocks. In the command center, Maya and Commander Rodriguez monitored the breach. They entered sections 14 through 17. The tactical officer reported. 28 hostiles, heavily armed. Rodriguez nodded. Activate containment fields as planned, but maintain minimal visible security presence. Let them reach the promenade. Kirvesh, now wearing a station uniform adapted for her exoskeletal structure, studied the tactical display. They're moving with standard Vesperi infiltration patterns. They expect resistance. Then let's surprise them, Maya said, checking the final preparations on her tablet. Are you ready? Kirvesh's compound eyes shifted through patterns of blue and green. What you're attempting has never been done before. It may not work. That's true of most worthwhile things, Maya replied as they left for their positions. The Vesperi strike teams moved through Delta 9's corridors with lethal precision, weapons ready. Their advance met with oddly little resistance. A few security barriers easily breached. Automated systems quickly bypassed. The lack of armed opposition created growing tension among the warriors. This is wrong, the team leader subvocalized to his squad. Prepare for ambush. When they reached the main promenade, they found it seemingly deserted except for two figures standing calmly at its center, Maya and Kirvesh. The strike team froze momentarily at the sight of a Vesperi warrior standing alongside a human. Before they could process this unexpected development, massive view screens activated around the circular space. The displays showed Earth's history, moments when humans faced extinction-level events, prehistoric predators, devastating plagues, and their own world wars. The images shifted to show humanity's response pattern, initial fear followed by adaptation, innovation, and ultimately triumph through cooperation. My name is Dr. Maya Chen. Maya called out to the advancing Vesperi forces. You've come seeking technology that doesn't exist. We have no neural dampeners or fear suppression devices. The Vesperi commander signaled his troops to surround the pair, weapons trained on them. Then explain your species' failure to display appropriate terror, he demanded. The displays shifted to show humans deliberately seeking controlled fear, deep-sea explorers facing the crushing darkness, astronauts launching into the void, scientists confronting deadly diseases, and even recreational activities like extreme sports and horror entertainment. My people don't lack fear, Maya explained, her voice steady despite the weapons aimed at her. We transform it. Kirvesh stepped forward, placing herself between her species and Maya. The move was so contrary to Vesperi combat doctrine that the strike team hesitated. Humans don't respond to intimidation, not because they can't feel fear, but because they've mastered it in ways we never imagined. She explained in her native tongue, the clicks and subsonic elements carrying nuances the translation devices couldn't capture. They draw strength from facing fears rather than imposing fear on others. On the displays, the images continued, showing human history as a series of fear-inducing challenges, met with innovation and cooperation rather than dominance hierarchies. We were prey species once, Maya added, hunted by larger predators. We survived not by becoming better individual killers, but by working together. Fear taught us to cooperate rather than dominate. The Vesperi commander stared at the displays, his exoskeleton plates shifting in patterns of confusion. He signaled his troops to maintain position rather than advance, a response that violated standard Vesperi infiltration protocols. "What is your purpose in showing us this?" he demanded. "To offer understanding," Maya replied, "and an alternative to unnecessary conflict." The promenade remained frozen in this tableau, armed Vesperi warriors surrounding an unarmed human and their own kind who had chosen to stand with her. In this moment of suspended violence, something unprecedented was occurring. Communication between fundamentally different evolutionary paths. 3 months after the standoff at Delta 9, representatives from 12 species gathered in the newly constructed Interspecies Cooperation Center on Earth's orbital station. The enormous observation deck offered sweeping views of the blue planet below and the assembled diplomatic vessels representing worlds that had never before gathered in peaceful assembly. At the center of attention stood the unprecedented document, the first formal human-Vesperi cooperative agreement, its holographic text shifting between languages as delegates approached to examine it. Maya stood at the edge of the gathering, observing the interactions between species that would have been unimaginable only months earlier. Beside her, Kirvesh adjusted the formal diplomatic insignia now attached to her exoskeleton, marking her as the first Vesperi ambassador to humanity. The Alturian delegation asked me if humans engineered fearlessness into your genetics. Kirvesh noted, her voice pitched for Maya's ears alone. They cannot comprehend your species' behavior patterns. Maya smiled, watching a group of human children being given a tour of the facility, moving with curious excitement rather than appropriate caution among representatives of formerly hostile species. "We're terrified most of the time," she admitted. "Our literature, our history, our science, they are all filled with our fears. We've just learned that being afraid doesn't mean you have to stop moving forward." Across the chamber, the Vesperi High Commander Suvrax conversed with Earth's diplomatic representatives. The agreement before them had been negotiated over weeks of difficult talks, driven not by mutual respect, but by the unsettling realization that the Vesperi's primary method of exerting control simply didn't work on humans. "Your people confuse them," Kirvesh observed. "The High Command still suspects hidden technology or biological modifications." "And yours baffle us," Maya countered. The idea of building an entire civilization on deliberately causing fear rather than overcoming it feels inefficient to us. The formal signing ceremony began, representatives stepping forward one by one to add their authorization. As Maya watched, she noticed how the other species maintained careful distance from the Vesperi delegates, their evolutionary fear responses still intact despite diplomatic protocols. "You know," she said quietly to Kirvesh, "when you first asked why I wasn't afraid of you, I didn't give you the complete answer." The Vesperi turned her multifaceted eyes toward Maya. What was missing? "I was afraid," Maya admitted, "but curiosity was stronger. That's the real difference, I think. Not that we don't feel fear, but that we've evolved to value discovery more highly than safety." As the ceremony concluded, word spread through the assembled diplomats about these strange humans who had somehow negotiated with the Vesperi when other species had only known subjugation or conflict. The human approach to fear, acknowledging it but not being controlled by it, had created possibilities previously unimagined in interstellar relations. In the following days, a new saying began circulating in diplomatic briefings and intelligence reports across the galaxy. The most dangerous species isn't the one that causes fear, but the one that acknowledges fear and advances anyway. The Vesperi, long accustomed to being the most feared species in known space, found themselves facing an uncomfortable new reality. Their most fundamental assumption about power had been challenged by beings who greeted monsters with curiosity instead of terror. As the Earth rotated below them, bringing night to the continents where humanity had first learned to huddle together against predators in the darkness, Maya and Kirvesh stood side by side watching the stars. Representatives of evolutionary paths, so different they should never have found common ground, yet somehow had. "I still don't fully understand you," Kirvesh admitted. "That's all right," Maya replied. "Understanding is a journey, not a destination, and we've only just begun."